Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Azure podcast with your host Sam Foote.
And Armstrong.
If you're new here, we're a pair of Azure and Microsoft 365 focused IT security professionals. It's episode 17 of season 6. Alan and I recently had a discussion around the new releases in June. Here are a few things that we covered. Key Microsoft Entra, Intune and Defender XDR features, including updates and new announcements. Azure changes, new features, and also retirements. We've noticed that a large number of you aren't subscribed. If you do enjoy our podcast, please do consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to us for you to show your support to the show. It's a really great episode, so let's dive in. Hey Alan, how are you doing this week?
Hey Sam, not doing too bad. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, thank you. Anything new in your world?
Microsoft Ignite tickets opened a lot earlier than they normally do.
Oh yeah, I did see that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it because it's normally 6 to 8 weeks beforehand, and it's now like 3-4 months. So, guess they're getting time to work out how to make the numbers for it.
Yeah, and I suppose that for like international travellers and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier, doesn't it? You're not booking everything, quite so late as well.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that's all that I've had going. It's been hot in the UK. Well, what we class as hot, I suppose.
It has been quite warm, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, what was it? My conservatory going up to 49 degrees today.
I'm going to call it 50 because it was like 49.9 degrees, wasn't it? So...
Yeah, before I open the doors for it, yeah.
No, yeah, it has been. It's been nice and warm, to be fair. Yeah, I don't really know much, to be honest with you. Yeah, sorry we didn't tune in last week. We were supposed to do Bastion, but I decided to just sit my SC100 instead. So, and because of it was really weird. I could get there was really low availability for online slots for exams. I had to go up to Reading to sit it, so it was kind of like a last minute change. So yeah, apologies for that. And we're not going to do Bastion this week. We'll do that next week. We're going to do news this week. So, but yeah, I don't see anything that's really going on in my world. I suppose the big one was the oh no, we were wait, do we talk about the Sentinel portal retirement in this episode?
Technically it'll be next
we can't leave that for a month. It's too big. No. It's too big. We had news. When is it? July 26th?
Yep.
Is that right? That the Sentinel Azure portal experience will be retired. Is that the right way of explaining it? Just going to be
retired, migrated,
sunsetted. Yeah, interesting. Well, I suppose it's not it is interesting change, but I suppose it's not that surprising really that they would want to consolidate it in a single place like they've done with like Purview as an example.
Yeah, I guess it's probably been a year, or at least coming up to a year, where you could have Sentinel in the Defender XDR pool. So it's just I guess it's now putting a line in the sand for it, and then just helping migrate to it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what do you think of I say it's the new experience, but it's not that new, obviously, is it? Do you think it's better it all being in one place? It feels like it.
Yeah, it feels right. I think you got to think about some of the main benefits are that it's enhancing the machine learning engine, etc., all behind, because now you're almost transitioning to the main XDR, machine learning engine, rather than having two separate, because you're in effect bringing all the data in to it, and eventually, all things will run through that. That's the whatever you want to call it, the XDR core services, then, and then everything is all correlated, etc., against all data.
Right. Okay.
So that's going to be the first benefit, and then another portal gone in theory, to manage it. So yeah, there's a few teething things for MSSPs and things like that are being resolved, but generally, it does work. It's not like it doesn't. There's just a few RBAC sort of things that just need to be sorted out. So
Okay. Nice. Yeah. So fair warning. I think they've given quite a lot of time for that, haven't they?
yeah, well, at some point, I don't know when it is. I thought it was soon. That in effect, I think when you spin up a new Sentinel, you can't. At some point, it will be that you can't do it in the new portal, and that you have to do it through there. So I think it might even be at some point where you have to go down the route of XDR integration, and then it's only customers who have currently got that Sentinel, Azure Sentinel experience that keep it. But
Okay.
I've not read that. I would just assume that's going to be a tipping point at some point, because always they're not going to want someone on 2 days before the experience to spin up an Azure version and start using it, and then all of a sudden have to then use another one, sort of thing. There's going to be a cut-off point where you can't spin it up.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Shall we jump into the news this week? Well, well, this week, but for the previous month, for June.
Yes. Yep. Our start and our I'll start with Defender for Office. So in June, Defender for Office brought in a new type of detection and classification called mail bombing attacks. Mail bombing is a distributed denial of service attack. Typically, subscribers, recipients to a large number of legitimate newsletters and services, resulting volumes of increased email within minutes, intended to overwhelm recipients' mailboxes and things like that. So it's to hide exfiltration of data, things like that in the mix of it. So a diversion in effect attack. So it's a new one.
Nice. Sounds good.
We've also got some AI powered submissions response introduced using Gen AI to explain to admins the email submissions to Microsoft as well. So that's Defender for Office. Let's just check whether, interestingly, they've missed out on this about the connection for third-party services. Interestingly, is that in another one? No. Okay, I'm going to talk about this, even though it's not in the list. But Microsoft announced recently that with two providers, which is KnowBe4, or the products KnowBe4 Defense and Darktrace. I don't know what the product is there, but in effect, there's an integration with Defender for Office and Exchange to allow cross information between the two services, and potentially a unified quarantine between them. So it's all in effect. There's some private APIs that Microsoft have opened up to these providers to allow them to synchronize information between the two services to gain a better experience across this. I think the idea is that, say you've got the third party tooling doing the protection. The idea is that Defender can collect the data about why something was quarantined and things like that, so that you can see it in the logs in Defender as well. That's what I believe. So hopefully some other vendors will come onto that to bring in that. It's not one or the other, it's a combination at least sort of solution.
Nice.
Okay, moving on to Defender for Identity. So in here, there's a preview now of scoping access to Active Directory domains. So now using the unified RBAC and a preview, the theory is that now you can scope it by Active Directory domains. So if you're an organization that's maybe using admin units or have got different parts of the business, or different regions, maybe they have their own Active Directory or sub organizations. Within the Defender for Identity, you can now scope which users can access what users, what data. So that's an enhancement to the RBAC. Another big one is that for Defender for Identity is that Okta can be integrated to provide detections of identity-based threats that from the events happening, or from the logs in effect from that service from Okta. So now not just being Active Directory, it's now an Entra. It's now Okta as the next IDP to be included. There's some updates to the PowerShell module, and also you can now create custom classification rules to identify service accounts based on organization-specific criteria. So this might be that where service accounts, you might be able to say a criteria of how their naming convention, as an example, so that you can identify them easier from that side. So that is Defender for Identity. Defender for Cloud Apps. So we've got behaviors data type in Defender for Cloud Apps is now generally available. So this is now a enhancement to the overall threat detection accuracy. So it's reducing alerts on generic anomalies and surfacing alerts only when observed patterns align with real security scenarios. So rather than just being sort of generic, it's now actually adding enhanced enhanced machine learning, etc., to identify those unusual behaviors that are maybe more security related. And then we've got a dynamic threat detection model that is in effect continuously adapting to the changes in the SaaS apps threat landscape. Ensures that organizations remain protected with up-to-date data detection logic. So so in effect, Microsoft are always updating the model to ensure that any new attacks or any other new what do they call them, techniques are updated into that model so they can be identified. Normally, I guess with a policy, it might have to be updated manually or reconfigured to meet that. So now they're doing it, on the fly for you. So that's good. Microsoft Entra. So generally available, an update to Microsoft Entra's work or school default background image. I don't know if I've seen this. Starting from September 29th September 2025. Okay, so what? Okay. They'll be making changes to the default background to basically focus users on signing into their account, enhancing productivity and minimizing distractions. I didn't think the default background was distracting.
Isn't it just grey?
Well, no, I suppose it sometimes has a picture of a person. Does it? Yeah. So there's enhancements there. Watch changing the visual
just
use.
Big arrows pointing at the login box.
Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, branding's all staying the same as far as I'm aware. But yeah, there may be some changes to that. But yeah. There's a deprecation of the conditional access overview monitoring tab. So that is now being removed starting of July the 18th and completing by August. You can manage lifecycle workflows with Microsoft Security Copilot in Entra. So I think this was in effect, gives you a step-by-step guide to performing key workflow configurations and execution tasks using natural language. So to help you build out those workflows. And there is also a public preview of cross-tenant synchronization, which is GA, but cross-cloud. So this is commercial to US Gov to commercial, and commercial to China. So if you do have to go into those other cloud types, you're able to synchronize between the two, which is an interesting one. I think that's probably it for that. I haven't got preview up at the moment. Okay, so Global Secure Access. So there was a recent release of the Windows agent with a new interface. They have also now brought out, in effect in public preview, an installer for Windows on ARM processors. So now that's covering at least those types or those other devices, the Windows Plus Copilot, PCs.
Wow, that's taken a while.
Yeah, I think it's been in the background. Just now it's more public from it. So, that was that. So that was it for that. And then let's just look at what's new in Purview. One thing I did notice, actually, whilst I find this, is I noticed that Rod Trent is now moved over to the Purview team now, and not targeting. He may still be the GUI on Security Copilot, and maybe that's sort of the transition, but he's definitely now pushing more of the Purview side. So that was interesting to find out. Typically, I can't find the new links for Purview. Okay, we'll leave that to the end. I'll find it in a minute. So that's all I've got for my side. I say all I've got, but that's a fair bit. What have you got, Sam, on your side?
I've got quite a few updates. Definitely not as many as last month, but right, let's get going then. Defender for Cloud. There's a new preview to create what's called optional index tags for storing malware scanning results. So Defender for Storage Malware Scanning now can optionally include index tags for both on-upload and on-demand scans. You can publish the results to a blob's index tags when a blob is scanned, or to not use the index tags at all. And index tags are essentially a key value store where you can that's searchable. So you could store, the contents, the results of a scan in its index, so that you can reference that in another application, right? So you could basically say something like, if you've got an app that uses blob storage as its backend, you could put a check in there to say, unless the index tag says the result is clear for this blob, then maybe don't serve it to like end users, that sort of type of thing, which is quite handy. API discovery and security posture for APIs is now been extended to include APIs that are hosted in Azure Function Apps and Logic Apps. In addition to the existing support for Azure API management. So this basically gets all of those APIs that aren't fronted with Azure API management into that discovery and security posture as well. So these new capabilities are automatically enabled to all Defender for Cloud security posture management customers who have enabled the API security posture management extension. By the time you're listening to this, it's expected to have rolled out to all supported regions. By the time you listen to this. Agentless code scanning, so GitHub support, and so there's support for agentless code scanning for GitHub repositories in addition to Azure DevOps. So you can customize the specific scanner that you want to enable. Select which tools that are used, Bandit, Chekhov, ESLint, etc. And you can have a granular scope, whether you should include or exclude specific organizations, projects, or repositories as well. So yeah, lots of good updates on that side of things. Now jumping on to Azure, quite a few items here, but we should be able to get through them pretty quick. Now generally available long-term backup retention for Azure database for Postgres, flexible server. So it now offers. There's now offered as a backup solution to support long-term backup retention and improve compliance for Postgres databases using Azure Backup. So just Azure Backup is a really key feature. Not just for resilience, but also for security as well. So it's good to see updates in that area. Now generally available, the Azure Storage Mover, support for an SMB. This flow is now supported. So from an SMB source to an Azure Blob target, Azure Blob target. So you can migrate SMB shares directly to Azure Blob containers. So pretty much the ultimate on-prem to that's a PaaS like hosted storage solution there. So previously you could go from NFS share to Azure Blob storage, and you could go from SMB to Azure file shares, but you can go directly to Blob containers as a target now. Azure Site Recovery now has support for virtual machines that have premium SSD v2 disks. So that's obviously a pretty popular combination, so it's good to see that support there. NFS now generally available. NFS Azure Files volume mounts are now supported in Azure Container Apps. So I just wanted to call that out because those types of like niche use cases are typically what restricts people from using those, highly available containerized, PaaS solutions. So it's good to see NFS Azure volume mounts support there. I'm going to leave that one. Now generally available, there are new storage optimized Azure VM series. So here we go. I'm going to try this. LAOSV4, LASV4, and LSV4 Azure volume things. These are based on 4th gen AMD EPYC Genoa CPUs. You have VM sizes ranging from 2 to 32 virtual cores, between 8 gig of memory and 720 with 8 gig of memory and 720 gigabytes of local NVMe disk capacity per virtual core. And some of them have wider ranges like 2 to 96 vCore, etc. So they give you the ability to scale your compute memory, but they also give you that local NVMe disk support as well. All of them can be powered by Azure Boost SSDs, and enable NVMe local SSD encryption by default. So good for that as well. A retirement notice: DCSV2 virtual machines. This virtual machine series will be retired on June the 30th, 2026. So if you do use that, so that again, that's DCSV2 series virtual machines, they're going to be retired in approximately a year. Now in public preview is a continuous performance diagnostics for Linux VMs to enhance virtual machine troubleshooting. So Azure Monitor has continuous performance diagnostics for Linux VMs now. So you've been able to do on-demand performance diagnostics. But this basically brings performance diagnostic support in line with what is currently available for Windows VMs. Data collector data is collected every 5 seconds, and updates are uploaded every 5 minutes to your preferred storage account, whose retention policies you can customize. It'd be interesting to see what extra insights you get from that. Good news, now generally available, is Microsoft Azure is now available from a new cloud region in Chile. So, yeah, for any Chilean listeners, that sounds right. Welcome to local, regional Azure support. I don't have any details for the size of deployment or anything like that, but good to see that being rolled out there. Now in public preview, back to Azure Site Recovery, they've now got support for machines with Ultra disks. So again, a relatively popular and high performant option. Good to see that support in Azure Site Recovery. Azure VM disk capacity has been expanded. VMs can now be protected with individual disks up to 64 terabytes and a total of 512 terabytes per virtual machine. Jesus. If you've got 512 terabytes of storage on a single VM, you can now back it up should you dare. So there's now a public preview for Azure SQL Managed Instance, which enables a customizable memory option. So it allows you to independently configure RAM decoupled from virtual CPU cores. So it can really help you save on compute and licensing costs, because it's licensed per vCore, I assume. Interesting to see that. So if you have a workload that consumes a lot of memory but not a lot of CPU, then you can do that, and then vice versa as well. Again, just making SQL Managed Instance even more flexible, because it's in Microsoft's best interest for you to move those SQL workloads into the cloud, so they're making that as easy as possible, which is good to see. Gives people flexibility. Azure SQL updates for mid-June 2025. Data virtualization for Azure SQL. It allows you to use SQL to query CSV, Parquet, and Delta Lake files, whatever those are, stored in Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 or Azure Blob Storage. So it allows you to integrate data from third-party services directly into Azure SQL, which is really good. There's now further updates to Azure SQL Managed Instance. Management operations are handled a lot quicker than before. Any configuration changes of your instance will be replicated in 30 minutes, whereas previously that took up to a 4-hour process to make that happen. Right, and the next one, Azure Functions in public preview now. Azure Functions enables open telemetry support. So what this does is it can give you better observability, performance, and detailed insight into your functions executions in the open telemetry format. So really good to see as many clear insights and diagnostics being available in these PaaS managed solutions. Now generally available, the Azure WAF integration in Microsoft Security Copilot. So I believe I don't know if you've updated us on this one, Alan, because you usually cover Copilot for security. But it looks like key features available in GA are SQL injection attack analysis, cross-site scripting attack analysis, top offending IP addresses, and top Azure WAF rules analysis as well. Looks like just better integration there.
All right. Yeah. No, I haven't covered it this time, have I? But yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's just it's the first time I've seen like a workload being represented in the Azure updates, but to do with Security Copilot, if that makes sense, but it is anyway, it's an Azure workload. So there's new updates for Azure Advisor VM right sizing. So there's expanded SKU support and series coverage. So this broader coverage covers across D, E, and F VM VM families. So it will give a more comprehensive evaluation of CPU performance. So giving you further recommendations to optimize your workloads efficiently. This was news to me. I didn't even know that it didn't include every single SKU family. So that's interesting. So hopefully you should get some extra Azure Advisor recommendations. Now in public preview, draft and deploy on Azure Firewall. So it introduces a streamlined two-phase approach to managing firewall policies. So traditionally, any policy update previously would trigger a full deployment of the policy and the attached firewall, taking 2 to 4 minutes per change. With draft and deploy, you can collaboratively make changes in multiple draft versions cloned from the current policy set without affecting the live environment. Once finalized, all changes can be deployed as once, replacing the existing policy. So that sounds like a very good update for Azure Firewall. Now generally available is the Azure FX V2 series virtual machines. These are powered by 5th generation Intel Xeon Platinum 8573C processors, whatever those are. They basically improve, they've got significant improvements in CPU performance, memory capabilities, and storage capabilities. So they are ideal for compute-intensive workloads such as databases and data analysis. The FX V2 series VMs provide up to 50% better CPU performance compared to the previous generations. It supports sizing up to 96 virtual CPU cores and 1.8 terabytes of memory. They've also featured NVMe support for faster remote storage performance up to 400,000 IOPS and 11.25 gigabytes. Yeah, gigabytes per second throughput. Sorry, I was just checking my gigabits and my gigabytes. So yeah, again, just really high performant compute instances. So always good to see revisions of those coming through. Now in Azure Firewall as well, supports the use of fully qualified domain names in DNAT, which is Destination Network Address Translation rules, allowing inbound traffic to be routed to back-end resources using domain names instead of static IP addresses. DNS backed back-end targeting, route inbound traffic using FQDNs, dynamic IP support. So this is ideal for applications where back-end IPs do change frequently. So yeah, cool update from that side of things. And last but not least, now generally available, encryption in transit for Azure Files NFS shares. Azure Files NFS shares now supports encryption in transit using TLS 1.3 to secure all NFS traffic, ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and authentication. So it will help you to meet end-to-end compliance needs, but also maintaining performance and simplicity. So yeah, check that out. A really good update. And that's it from me this month.
Yeah, there's definitely a few there, weren't there?
Yeah, a few decent ones. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, if we go to Purview then, just come back to the 365 side.
Okay.
Because there are some interesting things here. So under data life cycle management, there's some new retention policy locations that's been expanded to include co-pilots and AI apps. So team chats have been separated from Microsoft 365 co-pilot interactions with a location just for Teams chats. Current locations that support Copilot are Copilot Experiences, Enterprise App, AI apps, and other AI apps. So Microsoft Copilot being Copilot 365, Security Copilot, Copilot in Fabric, and Copilot Studio. Enterprise AI apps are Entra registered AI apps, Chat GPT Enterprise, and Azure AI services. And then other AI is Chat GPT, Google Gemini, and Microsoft Copilot and DeepSeek. So any data that's collected for that, you can now put your own, it's now coded in a retention policy.
Nice.
The other part is DLP. So in preview, there's a new block users from sharing sensitive information to unmanaged AI apps via Edge on managed devices. So be able to basically run, do your endpoint DLP in effect in Microsoft Edge to stop sharing sensitive information with Gen AI services. So I think that's a good one as well that's come in preview. And then with the data security posture management for AI, it's now generally available for interactions, capturing prompts in Security Copilot and Copilot in Fabric. The only one that's included in the Fabric area is Copilot for Power BI at the moment. And they're also rolling out a one-click policy to extend from the recommendation, extend your insights for AI discovery. So these are in effect DLP policies, browser based, in effect based on that DLP policy that I just talked about. But in effect for DPSM for AI, you've got detect sensitive information added to AI sites, detect when users visit AI sites, and detect sensitive information shared in AI prompts in Edge. And there's documentation update. So yeah, that's the updates for that. I think that is it. I suppose the only other one that was meant or announcement, I don't know when this was, whether this was last time or not, but the talk of Microsoft 365 Local.
We did
do that.
I can't remember. Let's talk about it now, because I can't remember if that was me and you just on a call or whether that was at a podcast. Yes, go for it.
So on Azure Local, now you can look to deploy some Microsoft 365 services onto that and in effect create a Microsoft 365 Local. I've been trying to, in the background, just find out a bit more about it, but it's mainly around, or the idea around is sovereignty of the data, things like that, when you need to make sure that you're managing all of it from that side. So it's definitely an interesting move. My sort of view, not my view on it, but I'm wondering whether where you have some organisations that have hybrid join exchange at the moment to keep stuff on-prem, things like that. I wonder if this could be I don't know. Again, I don't know how this all, how it interacts and works and things like that. But I wonder if this is a way of maybe having that hybrid join, but managed by Microsoft. So you haven't got to worry about patching and all of its security. It's all done for you. You just connect. You maybe send stuff to it locally.
Yeah, but when you say it's managed by Microsoft, what isn't? How's it any different to just running all that stuff on prem? Because, I suppose you do have to manage like the rolling patch updates of your on-prem software, but you're still going to have to do that, for Azure Local and this, aren't you?
I'm assuming that it's an Azure service, isn't it? So the only thing you'll be patching is the hypervisor, the Azure Local OS. That's it. Anything in Azure, if you had Azure workloads running, in on that Azure local. You wouldn't be patching its updates. That would be Microsoft doing it as they roll it out.
Yeah, but just playing devil's advocate, if I'm somebody that hosts that on-prem today, why would I move to it? Because I'm currently managing that today. There's not going to be a cost advantage, is there, to me moving it? Because I've still got to have the hardware and everything like that.
It will be the overhead of it, because today
Just less
you'd have
to manage.
today, with Azure Local. I mean, it's the question about Azure Local in general, isn't it, as well? But with Azure Local, you don't. All you have to do is, or in effect, it probably self patches. But all you have to do is update the hypervisor, the hardware, etc. Like you would a hypervisor generally. But any VMs, etc., or any core configuration to the from the hypervisor, you don't have to manage as well. It
Yeah,
just
that's
runs,
true. Yeah.
doesn't it? And it's
Yeah.
through Azure. And if you need to transfer data, accounts between the locations, I assume things like mailboxes, you can check a box and say put it on my Azure local, and it's done for you.
Yeah.
Where
So yes, you still have to host as your local, but it's like a black box to you, right? And all the management plane is somewhere else, isn't it?
same thing with Exchange, you don't have to worry about tweaking its config or anything like that. It's managed by
Yeah.
Microsoft. All you've got to do is
Yeah.
tell something to be down there.
Yeah,
Example.
that's true.
That's my assumption of it, because obviously I've not seen it.
No,
might
yeah,
be.
I'm just trying to think like what can I use as like the angle to convince people to
But
ditch all
if you've
that stuff.
got your on-prem Exchange exposed to the internet, things like that, that potentially that's now being covered by
Yeah, that's true.
Microsoft
Yeah,
now.
private. Yeah.
Any updates, and if there are any vulnerabilities, things like that, it's being patched constantly by Microsoft. And if you have to manage Exchange servers and where the mailboxes are and the clusters. I mean, I don't really do Exchange management as an example, but all that's done for you. When one gets patched, when it reboots, you don't care. Microsoft manages it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, true.
there's definitely value in there. It's just understanding what actually what it looks like, in reality. Because again, I don't know it. It sounds great, but what does it actually look like?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be 365 and SharePoint. So SharePoint's another one that's probably quite tricky to manage on prem with a farm of servers, things like that. You don't have to worry about that. It's all done for you. So that might be another key win there.
Yeah, agree.
But yeah, I was just looking about deploying Azure local in a minute as a trial. I don't think I've got the hardware for it, but I could try.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that's it. So
Okay. Nice.
So what's next week, Sam?
We're gonna do Azure Bastion. We were supposed to do it this week. Well, last week actually. Anyway, so yeah, a service for remotely accessing virtual machines in Azure. It essentially is a jump box type solution, so that you can securely connect to machines and workloads. Well, yeah, machines running in Azure in a more secure way through the Azure portal and also native tooling. So yeah, I'll take us through that next week.
Cool. Okay, did you enjoy this episode? If so, please do consider leaving us a review on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. This really helps us reach out to more people like yourselves. If you have any specific feedback or suggestions for our episodes, we have a link in our show notes to get in contact.
Yeah, and if you made it this far, thanks ever so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yep, thanks all.